The sun has set on the British Empire. That was the headline only a couple of months ago when the Chagos Island deal was negotiated between the UK government and the government of Mauritius. Yes, the Chagos archipelago sits in the middle of the Indian Ocean, a remote part of the world, but crucially, one that is of grand strategic importance. It's why the joint US-UK Diego Garcia base is based there. Many US activities cannot take place around the world without the use of this crucial base. But that headline, "The sun has set on the British Empire," really went through with that geography. Why? Because there are still, of course, islands and British overseas territories around the world, famously the Falklands in the South Atlantic, but also the Pitcairn Islands and the Chagos archipelago. Surrendering the Chagos Islands would mean that for the first time since the 1700s, there would be a time of day when not a single part of British territory received sunlight. It would mean for the first time the sun would set on that famous empire. Now, many people would say the end of the British Empire came about, in the late 1990s with the surrender of Hong Kong. Others would say it really fell with the Suez Crisis. Others would say, why on earth does Britain worry about having islands around the world at all? Shouldn't we look after the 70-odd million people that are on these islands here in Europe? Well, the answer to that is twofold. Not only is this island of grand strategic significance, there's also a case of the people who once lived there. The Chagossians themselves, they're terrified of Mauritius. They feel deeply afraid of the government that is very close to China, of an island that is miles and miles away from the Chagos Islands, that of course also has a fairly authoritarian regime at home. You can be imprisoned for up to 10 years for criticising or campaigning against the Mauritian claim to the Chagos Islands, even though these islands are thousands of miles away. So there's the moral point that people should be deeply concerned about, the right of those Chagossian people to not be Mauritian. They've never felt Mauritian. Why is the human rights lawyer in the United Kingdom, that is our Prime Minister, so keen to make these individuals Mauritian? But there's more to this too, because of course, Diego Garcia is an incredibly important strategic base. It's one of the foundation stones of the special relationship between the United States and the United Kingdom. Now, signing a deal to, in effect, lease Diego Garcia for 99 years. That's the deal that was negotiated between the UK and Mauritius, but it would surrender sovereignty of all of the islands and particularly control of all of the other islands. Now, Mauritius is a country that has in the past been seen as close to China. It's easy to see why Americans might be worried about islands that are only a few miles away from one of their most precious bases in the world could start to see outposts being built upon them by the Chinese. It's easy to see how these islands moving to a different sphere of influence threatens global security, and particularly threatens security in such an important region of the world. But now there's news. There's news that the new Mauritian government might not be happy with the Chagos Islands deal. It's interesting, isn't it, that the native Chagossians are not happy with the deal. The incoming Trump administration is not happy with the deal. And now it seems that the new Mauritian government is also not happy with the deal. All, I must say, for very different reasons. It seems that currently the only party that is in favour of this deal to hand over British islands and British sovereign territory is the British government. Why is the British government so keen to hand over these islands? Well, let's dive into the detail of what exactly has been said by the Mauritian government today. That's they don't think that the deal goes far enough. They want to renegotiate to make that deal deeper, to make sure that there are fewer safeguards for perhaps the base of Diego Garcia. That at least is the initial impression. But that leaves an opportunity. If the Mauritians want to go further, and the Americans are now deeply concerned about this deal, Might it all be collapsing before our very eyes? Might the intransigence of the Mauritian government actually mean that this deal falls through? Might we see Chagossian people jumping for joy and the Americans breathing a sigh of relief? Might the sun not set on the British Empire after all? Well, that seems today to be now a very real possibility. Individuals around Donald Trump in Washington, D.C. have been exploring how this deal could be interrupted, put on hold, or cancelled altogether. In fact, one American senator made this case in the US Senate only a couple of weeks ago. Well, here's what Senator John Kennedy had to say about the whole mess in the US Senate.
China's trying to dominate all of these sea lanes for military reasons and for commercial reasons. Here in the middle of the Indian Ocean is a group of islands called the Chagos Islands. One of the islands is called Diego Garcia. And we built a military base here. Our military base is one of the few in the world where our military can reload submarines. Our military base houses a number of Navy ships. Our military base there houses long-range bombers that we use to carry out missions around the world. President Biden and Vice President Harris are giving away this military base. The Chagos Islands has a rich history. Mauritius and the Chagos Islands, 250 years ago, they might have been close, but they're not today. They don't share the same culture. They don't speak the same language. They don't visit each other. In fact, many of the people from Chagos lived in the United Kingdom over here. But here's what President Biden is doing and Vice President Harris. They say we need to grant independence to the Chagos Islands, but not let the people of the Chagos Islands run their country. We need to give the Chagos Islands back to Mauritius. Why? Mauritius and the Chagos Islands don't have a relationship anymore, and we've got a military base here. I'll tell you why. The United Nations, and particularly the International Court of Justice, which has no jurisdiction over the United States of America and has no jurisdiction over the United Kingdom, which currently controls the Chagos Islands. They have scolded the United Kingdom. They said the United Kingdom is a colonizer. The same United Nations that has the following countries on its Human Rights Council: Somalia, Iraq, Venezuela, China. That's who thinks we ought to get rid of this military base. But in any event, the United Nations is saying, United Kingdom, you bad people, give the Chagos Islands back. But not let the Chagos Islands be free. They want to give the Chagos Islands back to Mauritius. And President Biden could stop it. And so could Vice President Harris. But they're for it. All in an effort to curry favor with the people at the United Nations, who walk around with their NPR tote bags and their organic broccoli and have great relationships with members of the media who they think write history. Why on God's green earth would we do that? Why? The United Nations says, okay, well, we don't want to be too mean-spirited here. The America can keep its military base for 99 years, but you got to sign a lease, and we got to start paying Mauritius to stay there. China says, fine, that sounds good to us. Why? Because number one, China's already started currying favor with Mauritius. And number two, Mauritius will now be in charge of the security of the Chagos Islands and our military base and the waters surrounding it. China, Xi Jinping, he's as happy as a gopher in soft dirt. He'll be hacking the Mauritius security as soon as the trade is made. Now, President Trump, I hope you're listening to this. My good friend Senator Rubio, soon to be Secretary of State, I hope you're listening to what I'm talking about. What we're debating today is important. I don't mean to say that. And I'm not kidding you. I'm not going to bubble wrap it. If Senator Sanders' resolution passes, it will precipitate a foreign policy crisis. But this foreign policy crisis is being perpetrated or prosecuted right now, and it's another foreign policy crisis, and it's going on, all because President Biden and Vice President Harris want to appease the United Nations and China. And President Trump, please, pretty please with sugar on top, pick up the phone and call the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom and say, don't sign that treaty. Don't give away the Chagos Islands. Don't give away America's military base. Don't do it. If we object, they won't. If we don't say anything, they will.
A stark message there from the senator, and one that perhaps may now have more relevance after this announcement from the Mauritian government. But of course, at the heart of all of this, let's not forget the plight of the Chagossian people. I had the pleasure of speaking to one such individual, Vanessa Kalu, on Good Afternoon Britain not so long ago. She expressed her grave fear of what Mauritius may do to her people.
We against that Mauritius, our sovereignty, Chagos Island, going to Mauritius, because Mauritius never owned Chagos Island. And my parent and my ancestor, we are indigenous from Chagos Island, and my parent is British subject at the time, but that's why by birth, because I born in exile in Mauritius, that's why I got my British Overseas Territory citizenship by birth, and then British citizen. I'm really opposed of the situation that is happening at the moment, because the Prime Minister envoy for negotiation, Jonathan Powell, he don't have the mandate to give away my island, Chagos Island, to Mauritius. It's bypass our self-determination that all the information and all we need to have a say toward the decision, and we oppose that Mauritius have our Chagos Island. We better welcome the USA as a sovereign if we need to cooperate with UK and USA together to do the sovereignty over Chagos Island.
Now, President Trump, we believe, is against this deal. And the thinking is that if Parliament can hang on until President Trump is inaugurated, then perhaps this deal could be cancelled. Is this your hope? Do you think that Keir Starmer would let go of this? It'd be quite a climb down for him, wouldn't it? Yes,
so I believe that the Prime Minister, the UK Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, need to listen to the British public, because we are British citizens, and our people in England at the moment is fleeing Mauritius because Mauritius opposed a Code Penal 2021 that imprisoned everyone who support UK sovereignty over Chagos Island. So our people is leaving Mauritius at the moment, is fleeing, coming to the UK without help from Foreign Office that is put like everyone who fleeing Mauritius need to have a plan to come to the UK. But the Prime Minister need to listen to the people. That's why the people electing him to, like, British citizen first. So we are British citizen. He need to listen to us. He need to end this negotiation with Mauritius government. We better want a negotiation with USA, as there's a military base in our country, and is mandated by USA.
Now, this is such an important point because, as you say, if you oppose Mauritian sovereignty over the Chagos Islands, you could be arrested by Mauritius. Mauritius could lock you up for what we would see as free speech because you believe that your home islands shouldn't be controlled by Mauritius. I find it unimaginable. I find it so bizarre that a human rights lawyer in our Prime Minister, in Keir Starmer, could be signing a deal, wants to sign a deal, wants to fast-track a deal that could see you and your family imprisoned for speaking up about the sovereignty of your homeland.
Yes, so at the moment, we are fleeing Mauritius because it's not a safe country for us. And to put like a 10 imprisonment, even there's a new prime minister, if this code penal is still active in their law, we are not safe to go to Mauritius.
Well, this is a story of many twists and many turns. The government's special envoy, Jonathan Powell, was sent over to Mauritius to try and speed up this deal before Donald Trump gets into office. That's on the 20th of January. But could it be that now the machinations from Mauritius, that they're seeking for a stronger deal in their half, and indeed the protests from those Chagossian people saying they don't want to be Mauritian at all, could all of these circumstances now lead to a delay or perhaps even a denial of this sordid treaty? Well, quite possibly, and it's one that we'll be keeping our eyes on very closely here at GB News. Well, I've been Tom Harwood for GB News Originals. Stick around and remember to subscribe for more original content.